Hey guys, welcome back to another Ncurses tutorial. Today's tutorial is going to be the third and final tutorial in my menu bar series. If you haven't seen the first two tutorials, go check those out because those will kind of get you to where you need to be for this tutorial. Just as a quick recap, in our previous tutorials we created a menu and a menu bar class that basically allow you to add any number of menus and give them a trigger value or trigger character. So if I hit F, it'll select File, E, Edit, V, View, and any other character it should, any other character it should unselect it basically. So that's what we did in our previous tutorial. What we're going to be doing in today's tutorial is actually adding menu items to the menus, because right now they don't actually display menu items, they just have a selected menu. So now they're going to display menus, and just as a demonstration of what that's going to look like, I've already coded this up. So what it'll look like when we're done is, you select File, it'll give you a menu that spans from one side of the window to the other, and it'll have some menu items within it. If you hit down, it'll select the next item, up, it'll select the previous item, and then it wraps around like that. As you can see, the highlighted menu item is blue, and then the other menu items are just standard reversed black on white. So that's kind of what our menus are going to look like when we're done, and that's what we're going to be creating. So alright, let's get started. Let me go back and clear. So I'm actually I have these numbered just to try and kind of keep this tutorial on track. So first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to need to add some variables to our menu class, so that way we can actually add menu items basically. So first thing we'll need is, I'm going to be using a string array to hold the items, so we'll need to add that, and then I'll also need two other variables, the number of items and the currently selected item. Like that. Now that we've added those now that we've added those variables, we actually need a way to pass them to the menu class. So we're going to do that in the constructor. You could have methods for this. I'm just going to keep it simple and add them to the constructor. So we're going to have a std string array be one of the parameters, and then we're also going to add the number of items as a parameter. And then down here we'll do this items equals items, this num items equals num items, and this selected item. We're going to want to set the selected item to 0 by default, so that way it's always selecting the first option by default. Okay, so now that we've added those variables and created ways to actually supply them to the menu class, we're going to add two other convenience methods for basically deciding which menu item is selected. So the first one is going to be called a select next item, which is just going to select the next item in the list, and then the other one is going to be select previous item, and that's going to select the previous item in the list. So for select next item, we're just going to simply increment selected item, but then we also have to do a check to make sure we are not out of bounds of the selected item array. So we're going to do a little if statement, say if selected item, and in this case we're checking to see if it's equal to the number of items. I guess I could say greater than or equal to, just to make sure. So if selected item is greater than or equal to number of items, then we want to set selected item equal to 0, because we want it to wrap back around. The reason why we do this even if it's equal to num items is because num items should be one more than the greatest index within the items array. So it'll always be out of bounds if it's set to the number of items. So in select previous item, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to decrement the selected item variable, and then we're going to check to see if we've gone out of bounds on the other side, which would be if we're less than 0. So we'll say at that point, if it's less than 0, we want to set it equal to num items minus 1. Again, because num items is technically 1 greater than the highest index, so we want to set it equal to 1 less than num items. Alright, so that's all the things we'll need to add to the menu class for our tutorial. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to our main file, and in here we're going to do a couple things. So in order for us to use a color pair to highlight the menu item, we need to check if the user's terminal has color, and if it does, start color. The way we do this is we say if not has colors, which basically says if the terminal doesn't support colors or color output, we just want to return -1 because we need color for this to work, so we're just going to exit. But if we get to this point, that means that the user can handle color, so we run the start color function, which just sets up ncurses to do color basically. And then we are going to initialize a pair, which is a color pair. We're going to give it the ID 1, so this is going to be color pair 1. That's how we'll identify it later. And then we're going to set the foreground color, all caps is pretty annoying sometimes, foreground color to white, and then the background color to blue, like that. So now that we have a color pair, we're also going to want to actually add some menu items to our menus. So the way we're going to do that is just by creating some string arrays. So I'm just going to have string menu1 or string menu1 array equal to yeah, I'll just do these and jump cut to after they're filled out. So hold on. Alright, now I'm back. So I've just gone ahead and created those menu items. So for file, we're going to use new, open, save, and exit for the menu items. For edit, we're using copy, cut, paste. And then for view, we're using sidebar and terminal. And I've just gone ahead and passed menu 1, and then the number of menus, menu 2, number of menus, menu 3, number of menus, and then the rest of the file I've left the same. Nothing else needs to change. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is within our menu.h file, within our menu bar class, we need to add another window. So this window is going to be used to hold our menu items, and I'm just going to call it MenuWin. And then we're going to need to initialize it up here in our menu bar constructor. I'm sorry if I'm going quick here, I'm just trying to keep this tutorial pretty short if I can, otherwise it's going to go really long. So in order to initialize our MenuWin, we're going to say MenuWin equals new win, and to get the dimensions and everything of this menu, or sorry, of this window, we actually need to get the dimensions of the window that we're displaying in here. So we want our MenuWin to fit inside of the menu. So we want it to occupy the space just inside of this window. And the way we're going to do that is we need to get some information about the window first. So we're going to create some variables called ymax, xmax, yBeginning, and xBeginning. And then we're going to call the function getMaxYx to get the max y and x value of the window. So we'll call it on win, and we'll get the ymax and the xmax. And then we're going to do the same thing, but with the getBegYx function, which gets the beginning values of the window. And we're actually going to use these to decide how to create this window. So we want the height of our MenuWin to be to fit from here to down to here, basically, which is equal to this window's height minus 2, because the top and the bottom is 2. So what we'll do is we'll do ymax minus 2, and then we'll do the same with xmax minus 2, because it's the same for the width, it's just the other window's width minus 2. And then for the starting position, we want to do yBeginning plus 1, and then xBeginning plus 1, because we want our MenuWin to be down and over 1 right here. That's when it starts. So we're going to save. Then the next thing we want to do is we're going to be using the up and down arrows. So we want to make sure to set keypad equal to true for this menu, or sorry, for the window. Then we also want to make sure we refresh that window, just for good measure. It's always a good idea to do once you make a menu. So I'm going to do that. Alright, now that the menu is created, or so the window is created, we're gonna start creating some methods. First method we're gonna create is the reset function, or method. What this reset method is gonna do is it's basically gonna reset all the the menus to their default state and basically get rid of any menu items that are displayed. Now, this reset function is basically just going to be a modified draw function. So we'll copy and paste draw in, and if we're resetting, we don't need to highlight anything, so we can just get rid of all the logic for that. And then we're going to want to make sure we refresh the window when we're done resetting. So now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to break up draw into several different functions, because otherwise draw is going to get really big here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to create these other shells for these other two functions just so we have them. So the draw menu shell, I'm actually going to give it two parameters, menu and then boolean is selected, like that, and then I'm going to get rid of that. And then for draw menu items, I'm gonna have draw menu items, and then I'm gonna have it pass a menu like that. All right. So what we're gonna do, the way we're gonna modify our draw function is we're actually just gonna copy and paste the main logic of it down into draw menu, because within draw we're just gonna call draw menu for the selected menu. So menu's I, and then we're going to say for the boolean, for the second parameter, we're going to pass selected menu equals I, because that'll be true if the current menu we're drawing is equal to the selected menu, and that's what we want. And then afterwards, we just want to make sure to set the selected menu equal to -1. And I guess another thing we should do in here probably is have a W refresh for the window, so that after we display the menu item, or after we highlight the menu, it refreshes it. Alright, so the next thing we're going to have to do, oh, actually there's a few things we have to do. So in draw menu, we have to change this code a bit so it works, so it functions properly. We're just going to change that to menu, and then we're going to change this check to is selected instead. So that should function properly. The next thing we need to do is say the user actually does select the menu, and this is the selected menu. So for instance, they select file, and we're displaying file. Then we need to go into another loop to accept up and down to select the menu items. So that's what we're going to set up for here. So we need to create a variable to contain the user input, and then one thing I'm going to do now that I'll explain later is we're going to actually call draw menu items here at this point. Actually, I'll just explain it now. And the reason why we're doing it here is because before the user presses a key, we want to make sure the menu items show up if this is the selected menu. And then we're going to go into a while loop. Now this while loop is going to have two conditions. The first is selected. So this is basically saying, okay, we only want to go into this while loop if this is the selected menu, because otherwise we don't want to display the items. And then the next condition is we want to have a wgetChar to get the character for each loop. So we'll do char equals wgetChar, and we'll pass it menuin. The reason why we're using wgetChar and menuin is because we want it to refresh menuin every time the user presses the character, so that way we don't have to call wrefresh to show the new window changes. So within this, we're going to have a switch statement on that user input because we want to check to see if they pressed up or down. So we'll create two cases, one for down and then one for up. And then we'll also create a default case. So in the default case, I'll start there. What we want to do is we want to set is selected equal to false, so that way we break out of the loop. Because if they press anything besides up or down from within a menu, we want to break out of that loop. Within key down, we want to move to the next menu item. So we'll do menu.next or select next item, that convenient method we created. In the key up, we want to do menu.select previous item. And then at the end of the loop, outside of the switch statement, we want to make sure we draw menu items, because each iteration we want to redraw them. So we'll do menu like that. So basically what we've got here is we're going to highlight the menu, and then we're going to draw the menu items no matter what, even if it's not selected. The reason why we're doing that is because we're not refreshing the window after this, so it won't show up even if this isn't the selected menu. Then we go into this while loop and we see, okay, is the menu selected? If it's not, we'll skip over this, but if it is, we'll get some input from the user, and we'll check to see if the input is down or up. If it's down, we'll select the next menu item. If it's up, we'll select the previous menu item. If it's any other character, we'll set is selected equal to false. Then out here, we'll draw the menu items a second time. Again, if this isn't the selected menu, or if is selected was set to false, this won't get displayed anyways because we haven't done a refresh. And even if we did a refresh, it would show up so quickly it would disappear. So what we'll do next is I'm actually going to I'm going to do a wrefresh menu in here, just so that way this shows up afterwards. Now, once we break out of the loop, what we need to do is we need to erase menu in. What this does is, just in case we have displayed menu items, we want to remove them, so it just sets the window back to blank. And then we will do a wrefresh on the menu in, and then we'll call it reset. So this will just make sure that we clean up anything that was displayed. So that'll handle that. Now that we've written this function, we need to go down and create our draw menu function, or menu items function. So it's a relatively simple function. What it's going to do is it's going to loop through each of the menu items within the menu that is passed and display them. So we'll just start with a for loop, int I equals 0. We want to run until we want to run while I is less than menu.num items, and we want to increment every iteration like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a move w, print w, and we're going to move within the menu in. We'll move to position I, because if we're printing out the first menu item, I will be 0, and this is the 0th line of menu in, which is what we want. This is where we want it to display, and then the second menu item will have I of 1, which would display it here, which is the second position, so on. So I is correct for the Y, and then we're always going to have the X be 0 because we want it to start at the beginning here no matter what. So that'll be 0, and then we're going to display menu dot items I, and we have to convert it to a C string because move print W doesn't like STD strings. It only likes C strings, C style strings. So now we come across the problem of, okay, we need to highlight this if it's the selected menu though. So we'll create an if statement. We'll say if menu dot selected item equals I. This is basically saying if this is the selected menu item, if selected, if it's the selected item, we want to give it the blue color pair that we created. So if selected, give color pair 1, or change to color pair 1. And then in the else statement, what we'll do is not selected, but we still need it to be reversed. So right here, this will print it black on, or white on black like this, but we want it to print black on white. And not only do we want it to print black on white for the text, we need it to print black on white for the entire line. So how do we do that? Well, there's actually a special function called change attribute, or it's really called change CHGAT. That stands for change attribute, and it has all the standard variants you'd expect, like move, change at, move W, change at, W, change at. So all the things you'd expect it to have. The function we're going to use is move W, change at. What this function allows us to do is it allows us to change the attributes specifically this will do it from starting from a specific position you move to. So it changes the attributes that already exist within the window without you having to print again. So it's a helpful function if you've already printed something and you want to change the attributes of something that already exists. So the parameters to this are, the first few are ones you're familiar with. It'll be the window first, then the position. In this case, the position is the same that we printed at, I0. Now the next bit is the number of characters that we want to change. So in order to actually get the number of characters we want to change, we need to do something similar to what we did earlier, where we get the max value of the window. So we'll get y max and x max like that, because what we need to do is we need to change the number of characters that is basically the width of this window. So we'll do int y max x max, and we'll do get max yx for our menu win. So y max x max. We really just need x max, but I'm going to get y max anyways. So now for this next parameter, which is the number of characters we want to change the attribute before, we'll pass it x max because we want to do it for the entire width of the window. And then there's a lot of attributes, or sorry, parameters to this. So the next one is the attribute that we want to change. So the attribute we want to use is a normal, because we don't want it to be reversed or anything like that. We'll use the normal attribute. And then the next parameter is the color pair we want to use, so 1 in this case. And the final parameter you just set to null. There's no reason to set the final parameter. I'm pretty sure it's an unused parameter. It still exists, but you have to set it to null. So that's what we want to do if this is the selected number, or selected menu item. What this is going to do is it's just going to print it that white on blue color. If it's not selected, we want to do something similar, but we actually want to set the attribute equal to a standout, kind of like we did for the menu item, or sorry, the menu title here. And then we want to set it to color pair 0, which is just the default color pair. So if it's not selected, we set it. That's how we're going to set it. Alright, I believe that is everything we need to do. It's the moment of truth though. We haven't compiled this, so let's compile it and see if it compiles. It does, and let's run it. If we hit File or F, it opens up. If we hit down, it selects the next one. If we get to the bottom, it wraps around both ways. Now if we press any other key, it resets. If we press E, the edit menu appears. Again, same deal. You can go up and down. And for view, same idea. So looks like it's working. We got a working menu. Working menu items. I hope this tutorial was informative for you guys. I know it was probably really long and it might have been a little rushed, but I tried to fit it all in as much as I could. This change attribute function is new. I might do a separate tutorial just on this in the future, but I hope this made sense to you guys. In the future, I'm going to be doing some more tutorial series, maybe like an ASCII game I was thinking of doing, because a lot of people have been asking for that. And then I'll also do some sort of tutorial where I talk about how to make sort of like a status bar, kind of like Vim has a status bar down here. So I'll do a tutorial on that as well sometime in the future. And another great thing, I just hit 1,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. I don't know how I'd do it without you guys. You guys have really made this all possible. If you like these videos, please subscribe down below, give it a like, and I'll see you guys in a future tutorial.